Building a successful podcast takes more than just a good idea. To be successful, you need to work hard and be consistent. It's so easy to get caught up in the big picture ideas for your podcast that you can neglect the most important part, showing up and doing the work. Don't just follow what others are doing. Focus on what makes sense for you, and then repeat that over and over again. Welcome to the Podcasting Secrets Show, where successful creators share their best stories, secrets, and strategies. I'm your host, Nathan William. Hello, incurable creators. Today, I am joined by Pete, the executive producer and host of the Break It Down show. Pete Turner is going to talk to us today about don't follow, but do repeat. Pete is the producer of more than 1,500 episodes. He's also a podcast consultant. He has 10 years of experience, and he's an Army veteran. I even saw on your Pete Turner YouTube show that you're a U.S. Army spy. Is that right?
That's right. Yep.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on the show. We look forward to hearing more about that.
Yeah, it's my honor to be on your show. It's always great to share someone else's area, because you and I know all the work that goes into these things, the equipment we buy, the lessons we learn. So I truly appreciate being able to sit with someone and have these conversations. And it's so enriching to be able to do this. And so, yeah, man, so I appreciate you and what you do. And I just dig it. And thanks to everybody who's listening. It's an honor, truly.
Well, first of all, can you just share with us a little bit more about the U.S. Army spy part? What did you do? What can you tell us?
I have a very unique career in being a spy. My job was basically, so I was a counterintelligence agent, right? And there's a lot of ways, there's probably about 130 different ways to be a counterintelligence agent in the Army. And my way was to go out in combat zones and leave the camp, go out into the villages and talk to people, whether it was government officials, warlords, farmers, whoever it was. And basically look and go, are we winning or are we losing? And how do we change those things to the better or to the worse, whatever it's going to be. And so I got to know everybody. So my job is to network, to find the people that had things that we shouldn't know and to learn them, to meet the worst people in the regions and make them my friends so that I could, again, reduce the threat or elevate the winning, whatever it was going to be. That was what I had to do. And in my case, in my job, normally you promote up and you get away from the field, but because I worked in a lateral kind of fashion, I did promote, but I didn't promote into leadership roles. I just continued to stay, and I got better and better and better and better at being in the field until I became this multi-tiered black belt where they're like, hey, get us Pete to go out and find this thing out. And so I would get by name tasked, not only by the American Army, but like the Iraqi Army, be like, hey, get Pete to go find this out. And so I would be an asset not only to the American forces, but the host nation forces as well, which is a remarkable thing. If you think about, I was so capable that I advised also the foreign forces.
What's the scariest thing you had to do as a spy?
It's all scary. It's an incredibly, and only as I've gotten older have I learned to understand just how dangerous my job was. There's no more dangerous. There's jobs that are as dangerous can be. Like once you're over the dangerous bar, you're over it. And my job is one of those jobs because although I'm proficient with a lot of weapons and you don't want to get into a gunfight with me, I can't win a gunfight. This is not enough of me, right? And so I can't rely on force. I have to rely on my moneymaker and my talking machine. So it's all dangerous. Every time you leave the camp, I've put my life into the hands of a sheikh who's like, you can trust me. I am your security. And I'm like, okay, well, I have to. Because my job is to do that, so I have to rely on that person's security, and he's not in any way an American, and I'm trusting that the trust that I've built is genuine. And so let me tell you, that's about as dangerous as it gets. And I've done it a number of times, but that trust, that capability that I believe in, that I've built with another person who I truly don't know if I know, has granted me access to incredible places.
Well, thank you for your service. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks.
Keeping us safe. Let's talk a little bit more about the Break It Down show. Can you tell us a little bit more of what you do on that show?
It's the same job. I swear to God, it's the same job. So I go out and I meet people and I talk to them. And I don't want to act like my ability to charm people is not genuine. Like I'm genuinely interested in people. and I genuinely try to do good things and bring value to the conversations that I have. So, but there are some elements that I think that I do that other podcasters don't. So one of the things I do is as often as possible and as makes sense is I'll bring in a second guest or a co-host into my show. So like the other day, I had on two authors. One of them wrote this incredible book about World War II and Winston Churchill's, like his mad geniuses, his mad scientist who invented all these crazy bombs. You maybe heard about a sticky bomb. There was one in Saving Private Ryan. Tom Hanks fills this sock with, and it's covered in grease, and he fills it with explosives, and they slap it on the side of the tank, and it blows the track off the tank. Well, that bomb, that concept was invented by these dudes that worked for Winston Churchill. And so these guys were like the masterminds of helping all the saboteurs that would slow down all of the enemy forces. And it's this fantastic book. And anyhow, so his last name is his name is Giles Milton. He wrote this incredible book. Well, there's another lady, her name Halleck Kochansky, and she wrote a book about the resistance, all the different resistance movements. And I thought, I've had Halleck on the show, but I've not had Giles on the show. If I link Giles and Halleck on this show, that would be an incredible conversation, because these two things feed each other, these two stories. And so sure enough, they both say yes. I have them on the show. And it turns out they're both English. It turns out they're both part of the London Library Association. And Giles is like, Halleck, are you going to the Christmas party? And she's like, of course I'm going. And why would I ever miss that party? And he's like, oh, well, then I guess we'll finally get a chance to know each other. And so because of my stupid ability to meet people, these two people who are in the same organization, and he's like the on the board for the years and years, these two people who should know each other now do, and will be at the Christmas party here in a couple of weeks. And so that's one of the things that I do. The other thing I do is whenever possible, I grab my gear, I throw it in my backpack, and I haul ass and I go out to the person. So the other day I was at, and a lot of people won't know who this guy is, but this guy is as famous as you could be. His name's Rich Little, and he's one of the premier impressionists ever. And when you think about impressionists, really the grandfather of all of them is this guy, Rich Little. So he knew John Wayne, he knew Betty Davis, he knew all these people. If you watch the old like the Dean Martin roasts, he was always on there because he can impersonate everybody. So I was at his house just a couple weeks ago, and he's in his 80s, but he still has a show on the Vegas Strip. You don't get a show on the Vegas Strip unless you're a legend, right? And so I had him on my show, but I was at his house doing it. And so there's a magic in going to Rich Little's house, and he's like, "Hey, Pete, do you want a soda or something? I baked some bread." And so now he is host while I host him on my show. And so there's a real magic to that. And that goes back to my spy skills. And so all this stuff goes back to that. So the Break It Down show is a really magical thing, because I wanted to start the show to reveal some of these stories, these things that I had learned, but it turns out it's all tied. Every single bit of it is tied back to my time as a spy in the Army.
I love it. What's the most challenging thing you've had to go through running this Break It Down show, and how did you get through that?
It is, as you know, it is so hard to know, like, if I was to go get a business mentor and say, here is the shape of my business right now, he would be like, you need to quit. Like every month along the path, right? And I've done this for 10 years. Like, this is not working. You need to go do something, go buy a franchise, and they would give me better advice, but you just keep doing it for whatever reason. And I just knew that there was something there. I could see and sense the value. I couldn't see it on a spreadsheet. I definitely couldn't see it on any kind of financial score, but I'm like, there's value here. Like, this feels too good. There's an exchange of happiness and fulfillment that I know if I continue to invest in this, and if I go follow Malcolm Gladwell's 10-year program, which is 10,000 hours, if I go do that, and everybody I talk to who's in like the entertainment business are like, and then at 10 years, all of a sudden, so I'm like, so I have to, if I can withstand it, if I can get to 10 years, I think it's going to turn. And it did. It started to turn over time. And I'm like, there's no money in this, and I should really quit doing this over and over again. But that road, that climb up this ridiculous, stupid mountain, man, it was never easy, and you're like, I really ought to quit. There's no money in this. I have no money. I'm struggling. So that is just, it has to be hard. Otherwise everybody would do it. But that really is it right there, that path, that journey. And it's still not easy. It's just easier, and I get to have better problems. My problems taste better than they used to.
Yeah. How many followers do you have now? How many
Gosh, I don't know,
listeners?
not that many. I'm not a person that people follow, but I am, and this will sound arrogant, but I am a person that people love. And so I have people that are super close to me, and a lot of my friends are friends because of the show. But I am a popular person, but I don't worry about. And this took time to develop this. This isn't a thing I invented overnight. But I don't care about social media. I don't care if I have 2 million followers on Twitter because that's not important to me. That's a great thing for people who do that and make their money doing it. That's not a thing that I do. I do personal interaction. I invest my time and my emotions in things that matter. Someone I can help, I'm going to help that person, and that endears me to them and them to me. And that's really what I try to do. So when I come across a project where I can invest my time and efforts, and I can bring somebody else in and help them out, or even just see if it's going to work for them, I try to connect people to things or to each other, and that's really where my community is in me and other people like me investing in one another. And that's really where my audience is in that space.
Yeah. Okay. So you talked about your biggest challenge being not making money, being able to stick it out over time,
Yeah.
and then it finally turning the corner. When did it really start turning the corner? What actions or monetization strategies did you use to help you get around that corner?
Man, there's no easy answer to that. You've ever been on a long desert road that just goes straight, and then ultimately you end up somewhere else, and
Yeah.
you're like, did that road ever curve? It's like that. That's what the corner looks like. You're just like, this thing is never going to turn. And so, my audience was great. I okay, so let me back up. People would give me a lot of work to do. Here's what you ought to do, and I'm like, I don't need more work. I need help. You want to tell me what to do? I'm going to tell you what to do. Why don't you invest $20 a month into my show? And then all of a sudden they would climb up, and I'm like, well, then your advice is no good because what I need is revenue. I don't need you to tell me how to earn money. I'm asking you for help. And then people started to get like, you know what? I see you working hard. I'll give you $20 a month. I'll give you $10 a month. And so all of a sudden and never a lot, right? I didn't want to make it about like, I want to get 10,000 people. I would have loved it, but I didn't want to make it about 10,000 people giving me $10 a month. And so I didn't focus a lot on this, but like, can I get enough so that I can buy ads, so that I can replace gear, so I keep going, so I could pay my bills? And a lot of people, look, there's people like, hey, Pete, can I help you out in some way? And so they might give me, say, $600. And they're like, here's $600 so that you could go and fly out to do this event or whatever it was. And so I would have this patronage, right? But I didn't go on Patreon because I didn't need Patreon to allow me to gather money. So I would do my own fundraising, and I use PayPal to do the transaction. But that that fundraising, that still goes on to this day. It's very small. It's very boutique, but highly, highly effective for me. And these people have become my friends, and I do things with them. And that's really how that corner started to round from a straight line into something else where I could say, hey, man, I could use help. And then the person's like, yeah, I would love to do that. And what I realized was that when you find these people, there's no shame in asking for help because they respect the work that I was doing because I work hard. And it's obvious, like, because there's thousands of shows in my backlog, right? But also they want to help and they get to be valuable. And one of my friends said it well. He's like, I've got an MBA, you've got a master's degree. I see what you're doing. Don't you dare quit because we all want to be you. If you need help, ask for it. I've got money. I don't have time. So when you need help, ask. And so I did. I'm like, hey man, I could use money. And he's like, how much do you need? And I'm like, can I bug you for 150? He sent me 300. And he's like, ask, keep asking, keep working. Don't quit. There's support out there. And that was the big lesson for me was like, man, I got to get over myself. And when I need help, ask for it. And look, I wasn't living high on the hog and my life looks very, very fancy because I'm flying places, but I'm not the one buying the tickets. It's someone else saying, hey, let me fly you out to do this thing, or I'll say, hey, I'll come out and support your event, but you're gonna have to fly me out. And so they did. And this happens all the time. And so there'd be a business transaction and I would return work for flights, or someone would say, I'll fly you out for that. So that's sort of how that corner started to turn, and it continues to round, right? I'm all the way around the corner. I'm not there yet, but I'm I'm way around the corner now from where I was, say, 5 years ago.
Yeah. Okay, so the biggest challenge you went through, just to summarize, is the financial side of this, and the
Mhm.
way you got around that and got through that was asking for help, whether it be in
That's
the
right.
form of sponsors or donors or subscribers,
Yep.
just asking for the help you needed. Am I saying that
Yeah.
correctly?
Yeah, and I would say when you say sponsors, let's not talk about brands because I'm not asking brands because I wasn't in the business. I did some sponsorship work, but that wasn't the bulk of it. So I don't want people to get the impression that I was like, "Hey, I'm going to support this comedy club." That wasn't. I experimented with that, but that never really worked for me or for the sponsor. But there was people did sponsor me, but it was direct to me by people who weren't looking for a return other than supporting my show.
Yeah, love it. Okay, on your show, what is your secret to success? Your secret sauce?
I outwork my competition. That there's something to be said. So when I was trying to figure out what to do, I saw Rogan doing 5 a week, and I'm like, I'm going to do 5 a week, probably 10. And so I started doing 5 to 10 shows a week, and just rang the bell more than anybody else. And you're forced because like, bam, there's Pete, bam, there's Pete, bam, there's Pete. And so it's
Yep.
like, what, you're working, and that made me exist because if you don't exist, you don't live. And
Yep.
that was the thing. And that's just exactly the same thing as spy work, right? Like, so if I can get off the camp every day, and you can't go off every day because you have to exist on the camp as well, right? But if I can go out and I can ring the bell with the show every day, bing, 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 and you understand that I'm working, that's proof. Even if that episode isn't the episode that you want to hear, you know that I did it. And so when I show up and be like, well, you see me working, and someone's like, yeah, I do see you working. How can I help? How can I help lighten your load a little bit? And that's or how do you do it? I'm like, well, I work hard, and I try to find money where I can. No, money's the problem, and that is the thing that separated me initially. And again, I get liking it back to the spy thing. So I go out every day. And if I come back from patrol and another guy's like, hey, we're going on a patrol, Pete, you want to go? Yes. Because if I'm off the camp, I'm making money. If I'm making shows, I'm making money. Even if it's money down the road, even if I'm planting seeds, those seeds are going to bear fruit. Not all of them, but they're seeds in the ground. And sometimes the seed takes a long time to germinate.
I love it. Thank you for sharing that. Work
Yeah.
hard. I ran the 2 mile in track when I was in high school, and I wasn't the most gifted and natural athlete of the other guys on the team, but I could outwork anybody, and that was my secret to success. Was just putting in the hours, putting in the reps that others weren't maybe willing to pay
Yeah.
the price.
There's an elegance that comes from that too, right? So sometimes the reps equal rounding off of edges. And so people talk about grinding, but at some point you get past grinding and you get into polishing,
That's
and
right.
that's where like you are, that's where I am. It's like, oh, okay, I don't have to do as many shows per week, but I have my show in a lot of ways. This sounds crazy, but my show largely books itself, and I can chase certain people, but there's a lot of elegance in that because I'm like, I can get that person, I can get that person. So I'm not blind asking all that often, but there's a lot of PR agents that reach out to me, and I'm telling them yes and no a lot more than I used to. It was a lot more open and permissive before, right? And so I don't do as many shows. I don't ask as many people, but I still book. I mean, I'm still producing shows all the time.
Okay, there's a specific skill that you wanted to teach our audience today. You call it "Don't follow, but do repeat." Can you tell us a little bit more what you mean by that?
Yeah. So in the podcast world, there's a lot of. I'll just be unfair. Okay, I could probably say this better if I thought about it, but I'm just going to shoot from the hip here. There's a lot of banal advice. Don't follow that advice. You have to repeat the things that you do and then slowly improve those. Hue, hone, polish, like we just talked about. But don't just, when people like say, whatever their advice is, if they don't have a lot of shows behind them, what are they talking about? Just get out and do it. Just whatever you can do every day, the smallest thing for your show, go out and do that and repeat that, and then get better from there. Don't try to take on the world's biggest show and try to be that. Don't worry about the big things. Don't even sweat the naming of your show. Just get the damn thing going. If you're going to go out and book guests, book a guest every week. Stop worried about it. And if you can't book a guest a week, then book a guest every other week. And if you can't do that, well, then can you book a guest a month? Well, figure out where the bottom is and work your way up from there. Because if you can't do that, then you don't have a show. And it's okay to not have a show because most people don't. So just figure out where the bottom is and then add from there. Because I use swimming or martial arts as an example. If you came to me and said, "Hey Pete, I want to become," and you use the 2 mile, I ran the 2 mile. "Hey Pete, I want to become a 8 minute 2 miler." I'd be like, "Well, okay. Um, can you run 100 yards?" "No, I don't run at all. I hate running." And I'm like, "Well, okay, let's slow down on the 8 minute goal." Or like if you look at someone at the gym and they're like flexing their triceps, you're like, "I want to be that guy." Okay, great. But can you eat 12 times a day? And can you live your life? Okay, well then that's not your goal. Or if you want to swim 400-meter butterfly, like, you're not going to do that. So the podcast is the same way. It's just as hard. Do you want to start a small business where your chances of success are probably less than 10% to make any kind of money or even to survive to 20 episodes? Well, then let's not just start there. Let's just see if you can do the first thing reliably and repeatedly, right? So all these people that sell all these courses, God bless, go do that. Go take that course, and that's a decent guide. But I'm just telling you, just do the first thing and see if you can do it 5 times. And if you can't do that, readjust from there and just keep it simple and repeatable. So just repeat the small things. That's my advice.
I love it. Repeat the small things. Okay. Can you take us step by step through the process of how we can do this? Teach us how to don't follow, but do repeat. How do I do that?
Yeah. So, forget that stupid course. Okay. So, look, you do need equipment, right? But let's just say in this case, you're just going to do that off your phone because you can't, or you're just going to use, like we're using Riverside here. So I'm sure Riverside has some kind of free platform. Just grab the free Riverside platform, plug in whatever kind of microphone you have. Everybody has some kind of microphone. And then just grab your best friend and just say, "Hey, let's practice," and just do a show. And who cares? It's going to suck. It's not going to be your best show. Your first show is never your best show. And then plan the next one, put it on your calendar and just say, on next Tuesday, I'm going to grab my best friend. I'm going to do it again. Or I'm going to grab another friend and do it again. And just see if you can do that 4 times. You don't have to publish them. Throw them out. Just throw them out and say, "Okay, I've done 4. Pete said, if I can do 4, I can do 5. If you can do 4, you can do 5. And so then you do the next one. Now, okay, all right, now I'm going to get for real and I'm going to do it. We're talking about an interview show. Okay. If you want to do a scripted something, that's a little harder because you have to write a script. So we'll just keep it simple. So if you can do 5 interview shows, then start really booking guests. How do you get guests? You ask. That's the first thing. You find someone and you ask. And you might have to ask 10 someones, but someone's got to say yes. I will tell you, I know a guy who will say yes. If you write me, Pete@breakitdownstory.com, I will say yes. Not because I'm desperate for attention, but I want to prime the pump for you. So if you ask me, I'll come on your show. Pete@breakitdownstory.com. There you go. You already got a guest in the bank, and I will connect you to people that might say yes to you also. So if you want to have an interview show, just start booking people, but have those couple of interview shows first so you know where all the buttons are so you can do everything. And that's how you start. Just keep it small and do that and just see what happens. See if you like it, because you might hate swimming. You might hate the 2 mile, and maybe what you are is a javelin thrower, and that's fine. Go grab a guitar, go do something else, create something, please. Maybe it's probably not podcasting, quite frankly, but if it is, start by doing 4 episodes, get to the 5th one, reach out to Pete, reach out to somebody else, and just keep going.
One of the biggest reasons people do podcasts is for the impact that they can have on the world. Have you seen that in your job? How are you changing the world with your show?
I'm going to be a little bit of a contrarian here. No one gives. Can I swear?
Absolutely.
Or not? Okay.
Well,
no one gives a fuck about your show. All right. Just going to be honest. You haven't earned the right to anyone give a fuck about your show. You've not even done 1. You've not even done 4. You haven't done 10. You haven't done 20. You have no weight. So yes, your message is important to you. Can you listen to your own show? No, you can't stand your own voice. Then why the fuck do I care? I mean, when people come into me and pitch me their show, I don't care about the concept of your show. I care, can you do 10 of them? Can you show up to your own show? That's important, way more important than what you think your message is. And I don't want to be a dick, but I'm being honest. Like you don't matter. Your idea is common. Everybody has great ideas. What's uncommon is the ability to turn it into something. And then, by the way, that a lot of people have done that. So can you repeatedly do that? Can you repeatedly come up with great ideas? Can you repeatedly write a great script? Can you repeatedly get a great guest? Can you repeat your greatness? Then I'm interested. So don't think that is exceptional. Repeating, this goes back to the whole repeating thing. That really, to me, is more important. So you want to have an impact, you have to be ready to do a lot more, because your competition is Jason Bateman and his friends. Your competition are some pros. Like the days of being ahead of radio, that's over. There's a lot of pros out there playing now, and these people are seasoned. And look, there are people that all the time, every day, make it. You absolutely can. But to think that you can show up with a great idea, that's not going to work. I'm being honest. And my job here is to show you the dragons. That's a big dragon. And you cannot bring a knife to that fight. You've got to bring tenacity, and you've got to bring intensity, and you have to bring repeatability, and you have to absolutely outwork your problems. So yeah, you can have an impact. And the impact I have has nothing to do with popularity of my show. It's all something different, and it's taken a decade to get to where I'm at. So I'm not making light of what your impact might be. I'm encouraging you to create something. I'm just saying, do not underestimate the challenge of having an impact, because it is not easy to get people to give two fucks about what you want to create.
Yeah. So your point is we have to be consistent. We have to show up and do it if we ever want to have an impact. It's about being consistent first, and then impact as a result of that. Am I understanding correctly?
Yeah, and you have to be salesperson of your show for a long time to really make it matter. But what is more, like, what do you want to hear less than, like, I've got a podcast, right? I mean, it's a balance between, it's ridiculous to say that, but you have to say it because literally no one else will, because guess what? Nobody cares about your show, right? So you have to figure out how to sell your show. You have to be nonchalant about how you sell your show. So you have to figure all these things out. And maybe you catch lightning in a bottle, but go out into a field where where there's lightning and try to catch lightning in a bottle. That shit's terrifying. So you have to balance these things. How do you learn how to do that? Reps. That's the only way to do it.
Yeah.
You have, I'm going to tell you a secret right now. PR. Go have someone help you figure out how to exist. That's going to speed up what your message is going to be, but you have to be good when you get there. You can't and ah. You have to have clear, concise ideas. You have to be practiced. You can't be afraid to hear yourself speak. You have to be ready. And so practice. You need reps. Absolutely.
So Pete, in the pre-interview, you were telling me a little bit about some of the cool things you've got going on now, in addition to your show. Can you tell us a little bit more about what's next for you?
Yeah. And I think this is interesting, because when you think about podcasting, what a successful podcast looks like, in my case, it's very likely that my success is going to kill my podcast, because I'm looking at, as an executive producer, I make things and I bring people together and resources together. And so it looks like I'll be making at least one, if not several, podcasts over the next couple of years. Sorry, I mean documentaries. And they're talking like large scale documentaries that they're going to starve my show for attention. And so my successful business is going to kill my successful podcast. And my podcast is so wonderful. It's so fulfilling, but I can't justify the time because of the lack of success revenue wise. So, you have this one line of my business where I'm like, I can't put that much time into it. And I don't know that I can justify spending the time, the resource. And actually, I'll tell you honestly, I've killed the podcast part of my show off because it was a cost center. And I look at the listeners that are listening, and I'm like, you either got to listen on YouTube or you're not going to hear it anymore. I mean, I've killed that part off. That's how successful my other business is, because of my podcast. So my technical podcast, it doesn't exist. It's in history. So it's all YouTube or nothing. And the YouTube side, it's not life support, but it's not doing very well because of the success of the things that my podcast has brought to me.
So you're saying that maybe the podcast itself won't be what makes you the money, but maybe
Right.
the podcast will open the doors for you. It's like me. I did my podcast and published every day for a year, and it opened the door to discovering about this software opportunity. And we went and built a software company. It opened the door. My success wasn't from the show itself, but I never could have got to the software success without doing the show. You want to tell us a little bit more about these documentaries? What are you working on?
I can't talk about them, but I can give some ideas, some snapshots on what other people might get. Like if you have so the other day, there's a guy that I know that we haven't always connected because of scheduling. And he's got this innovative technology for Windows that reduces the amount of energy a building uses. And buildings are very energy expensive. And he's like, I want to start a podcast. And you know me, you already heard me talk already. I'm like, you do not want to start a podcast. You have a startup that's about to explode and you're expecting 2024 to be huge for you. The last thing you need to do is start this cost center small business in addition to your small business that's going to go. What you need to do is take my podcast and sponsor me, and we'll go out and we'll go hunt for leads. And so pick your top 10 clients you'd love to land. I will pitch them to be on the show. You'll come in as a guest host and we'll talk energy. And he's like, I never thought about that. Yeah. And I'm like, so for a fraction of the cost, none of the work, you will have this opportunity. So there's this guy that I know that we haven't connected on our schedules just because of life, but he's got this startup where he has a modern glass with technology in it that uses less energy. And apparently buildings consume a lot of energy. And so he's looking to market this. So he comes to me and says, hey, I want to start a podcast. And you know me, I'm like, no, you don't. You don't want to, if you're going to have this launch year where you're going to go crazy with your new product, you don't need to attach this money-sucking small business onto it. And so what I'm suggesting from my point of view as a podcaster is, don't start a podcast, fund me so I can help you go pick your top 10 clients that you want to pitch. I'll go pitch them for the show. You come on as a guest host and we'll talk energy on the show. And now you've got this marketing PR tool that you can now have a soft entry into your dream clients, and you've done none of the work. You've had this great conversation with the client and you've paid me a fraction of the cost of running a podcast. And then he's like, wait, seriously? Is that what you do? And I'm like, yeah, that's what we do. And that's just one little aspect, right? So you take your podcast and you do a similar thing. And all of a sudden now your podcast is making revenue because you've attracted someone who thinks they want a podcast, but really what they want is your capability to book guests or do other things. So there's any number of things where you can think outside of the box and create value for somebody else. And that's what you're looking for, is how do you exchange value? That's all of it. And so I learned that I can meet people that I shouldn't be able to meet otherwise. I can put people together with projects that I wouldn't otherwise be able to do because I got this ridiculous podcast that has connected me to thousands of people now who can do anything in the world. I mean, the most famous impressionist in the world, I now know that person. I know people that are the most successful actors in the world, musicians, all kinds of crazy people because of my show. That means I have the ability to put people together and create opportunities for money.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing the value that you have with us today, Pete. If our audience has enjoyed the show like I have, and they want to learn more about you and what you're doing, what are the best ways for them to do that?
Just reach out to me on Twitter, P.A. Turner. PeterBreakItDownShow.com is my email address, either one of those spots. And I'm glad to talk to anybody who wants to reach out.
And where can they find your shows? What would you like them to do?
You can go to YouTube and just type in P.A. Turner or Break It Down Show. It'll be on there. If there's all kinds of episodes, you type my name in, it always comes up.
Thank you so much. And I wish each of you success as you work to implement what we've learned today, and you strive to not follow, but to repeat. So here are my key takeaways from this episode. Number 1, ask for help when you need it. Pete asked his audience and contacts for financial support when he was struggling to keep his podcast going. So don't be afraid to ask for what you need. Number 2, outwork your competition. Pete attributed his success to producing way more content than comparable shows. Put in the hard work even when you don't see immediate results. Number 3, start small and repeat. Focus on starting with small, repeatable actions instead of trying to create an epic masterpiece right away. Consistency matters more than polish early on. And number 4, podcasting can open doors. Even if the podcast itself doesn't make a lot of money, it can lead to other opportunities by building your network and skill set. Look for the indirect benefits of your show. If you're looking for a great all-in-one podcasting platform with 35 integrated modules, you can get a free trial at podup.com. Thanks for joining us for this episode. I wish you success as you grow your podcast.